Hey guys, needless to say, I did a little bit of testing on getting the perfect soft and fluffy sweet dinner roll recipe. Perfect for your Christmas meal. So let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, thanks for joining me. My name's Alycia and I'm a pastry chef, and I've been a chef most of my life, and now I'm a mom to a toddler. And I'm here to bring you all the tips and tricks on making the best keto and low carb recipes possible. So if you enjoy these type of recipes, please consider hitting the subscribe button down there. Leave me comments, like, and share this video with all your friends. It all helps my channel grow and to bring you new videos every Saturday. Today, a delicious roll that I figured out. It's only 1 gram of net carbs per roll. It's 8 total, 5 sugar alcohols, 2 fiber, and it is like the chewiest roll that I've ever made. And it started from my garlic knot recipe, and I'm like, I can figure out a roll out of this that's a little bit more chewy and still super fluffy. It took a lot of testing. That wasn't even all the rolls. We ate a lot. I gave a lot to people. I took it over for meals and dinners at different people's places. They all loved them, but they weren't perfect. So I finally figured it out. And the whole reason it wasn't working was because I was using this allulose molasses. I even cut it down to a tablespoon for a whole batch, and they were still wet inside. So that's why I say that allulose isn't always good for baking because it will hold on to moisture and make your rolls dark. I even minus the oven temperature like a lot and cooked it longer, and it was still wet inside. So I scrapped the idea of putting the allulose molasses in the roll, and I switched to a brown sugar that's like packable. This gives you that sweet molassesy taste without using molasses. So I kind of based this recipe off like Hawaiian sweet rolls. This is the first time I'm going to be making it in the bakery because I was testing so much. I was literally doing it at 5:36 in the morning before Van woke up upstairs. So I haven't baked a batch down here that were bigger rolls since I figured out the recipe, because I figured it out and they were super tiny and I wanted to get like a bigger roll. So I had it right, but they were a little bit dry because they were tiny and I wanted a nice big roll. We're gonna jump right into the recipe, and hopefully I'll remember it and get it right because I did so many variations of this. It's all kind of jumbled right now. And this is the first time I'm gonna be doubling it. I was doing 9 rolls at a time. I'm gonna do 18 because Van's birthday party is coming up too, and I want some rolls. So a lot of firsts today. I'm hoping it's all gonna turn out right. We're gonna start with a half cup or 96 grams of some kind of sweetener that is not allulose based, but is like a packable brown sugar. This I just happen to have found at Big Lots on sale, so that's why I have this one. But I'm sure the Swerve brown sugar will work, or the Pure Cane or something like that. I want to see, I've never measured this stuff like and packed it down to see, like it says 2 teaspoons is 8 grams, so it should be 96 for a half cup, but I never do it by cup, so we'll see. That was way more than 96. Well, okay, it was 8 grams more, so 2 teaspoons more than, so that much extra. So I guess you don't have to pack it down as much as like a normal brown sugar. Just so you guys know, I just always weigh because it's just much easier that way. You get it the same every time, especially when doing experiments. I measure to the gram, and I like sometimes have to minus a couple grams of something to see if it'll work. And I did that with the xanthan gum a lot in this recipe and with the allulose syrup. That's another reason why I do everything in weights and grams, because if I was testing all this in cups and teaspoons and tablespoons, I'd get different results every time and not know why. To that, we're gonna add 4 eggs. Really gotta make sure I double everything. I'm worried. I should have my tablet here with my measurements. Ooh, that was a bigger egg than normal, it looks like. If you want to be super accurate even with like the eggs, I use large eggs. You should get 200 grams, but that could really change up this recipe to how thick and doughy it is if you have more egg than I do. I pretty much always use the same brands, but I don't usually weigh it out. I probably should start doing that because it might actually change up the recipe. See, I said it was a little bit bigger. 205. So we'll see if that changes things. Normally I'd have that going while I get everything else going, but I'm not gonna have that running while I'm talking. So you don't wanna whip it up too much anyways. And with that extra kind of moistness in the sweetener, you don't really need to whip it very much. And you don't wanna get air in it, because if you get a lot of air in your eggs and then you bake it, it will bake up real nice and then deflate. They still do deflate a little bit, which I wish we could avoid somehow, but it is what it is with keto baked goods. I already have 4 ounces of heavy cream here. You can use heavy cream water mix. You can use all heavy cream. You can use just a low carb milk. Probably could even just use water if you wanted to, but I think the extra fat will give you a more moist roll than a dry roll if you use like all water, because the fat helps give moisture. I'm gonna add 4 ounces of water to this. So basically I'm making a whole milk kind of thing. Okay. And we are putting yeast in this, and we are proofing these. I have found that it gives you a bigger, fluffier roll if you do proof them. So we're gonna heat this up in the microwave between 100 and 110 degrees. My thermometer, no. I got a new dehydrator, so I was testing the temperatures to proof my bread. So I try to save on dishes, like I broke the eggs into here, and then I put the water in here, and then I'm gonna melt a stick of butter in here for the dough. Now we're feeling warm. Okay, we're at 102, which is fine. We're gonna get this in there real quick. 2 teaspoons of inulin. You can also just use some honey if you want. All right, ½ teaspoon will do it. If it doesn't, add a tiny bit more, but you should be fine. As long as your yeast is blooming, you're good to go. And 9 grams, which I'll probably actually do 10, because in tests I was doing 5, because you can't really half 9. So put that in a warm place to warm up. I usually turn my dehydrator on and just set it in front of there, because we are proofing this, so my dehydrator will need to be on anyways. Okay, I am gonna measure out 4 ounces of butter, because I was doing half batches, which I was measuring out 2 ounces of butter. A lot of times if you have butter sitting out, the butter will leak through the paper and you'll end up not having that much. So I'm gonna actually weigh it out. Should be a stick of butter, but you never know if you're not weighing it. Should be 112. 4 ounces. So we're gonna melt that. And then we just need to get the dry ingredients together. You don't want to overheat your butter too much. That's just going to make your dough really warm and be harder to work with. Just get it warm, and then if there's still chunks, the residual heat will melt the rest. Okay, so for this recipe, I used bamboo fiber instead of coconut, bamboo fiber, and whey protein. And I kept messing with the ratios of flours, minusing as much as I could to get it like nice and light and fluffy. So this is all bamboo fiber and an unflavored whey protein isolate. I use Isopure because there's 0 carbs in it. They all tend to have either soy or sunflower lecithin in them. This one has soy, which I've been debating on changing so that I don't have that in there. I minus this a little bit from my garlic knots. So only 90 grams, which is a cup scooped with the measuring cup and leveled off, and 2 tablespoons scooped and leveled off. Bamboo fiber, I'm going to measure it out for you. It's 116 grams, which I'm not sure what that is in cups. And the back of the package, you can't see what it says. So start with a cup. I think a cup is like 66 grams or something like that. It's really hard to measure this stuff. It's so like light and fluffy, but not light and fluffy. It's weird. Okay, so that was 66, 67. In the old recipe, it was 88 grams of bamboo and 30 grams of coconut. So I just took the 30 grams of coconut and pretty much replaced it with the bamboo fiber. A cup and 3/4 about. The only downside to using all bamboo fiber is basically it's more expensive, because coconut flour is a lot cheaper than bamboo fiber. I don't think the coconut flour would really hinder the taste at all, because you're doing like a sweet roll and coconut flour is a little bit sweet. Now this is where the chewiness comes in. So I upped the beef gelatin from 2 tablespoons to 4 tablespoons, which is 40 grams. You don't even want to know how much gelatin I went through testing this. I knew the gelatin was good, like amount-wise. It was everything else that I was adding. The xanthan gum particularly, I didn't know if that was contributing to the doughiness in the middle or if it was the allulose. Found out it was the allulose because I upped my xanthan and left out the allulose and turned out perfect. So I did 4 tablespoons, but usually they're 10 grams each. I was a little bit shy though, so you never know. And this is a particular brand. I'll have to look it up. Someone sent me the beef gelatin. I normally use Thrive Markets beef gelatin, and I just bought another 3 packs to use because I like that beef gelatin. But I have a feeling beef gelatin can even vary in strengths, just like from beef to pork to like a vegetarian option. 1 tablespoon of baking powder, which I just weigh it out as 10 grams so I could get it the same every time. And then the other big contributor to the nice chew factor and the way we use this as a dough and actually make rolls out of it is the xanthan gum. And I suggest getting Anthony's because even from Anthony's to the new Walmart brand I bought to another brand I bought, they were all different strengths. They were all stronger than they were before, but this one I used half the amount. I think the Walmart brand I was down to using 1/3 of the amount. So if you want this recipe to come out easily, just get Anthony's off Amazon. It'll be linked below because that is the brand I've been using for all my testing and everything. I was doing 9 grams for a half batch, so I'm gonna do 18 grams. 1 tablespoon. I was just doing 2 teaspoons, but it would be different every time, so I would just make sure I got to 9 every time. 15, 18. So a teaspoon and 3/4-ish. And then you do not want to forget the salt. I did forget the salt in a couple of tests, and it doesn't taste like anything. Like, you need the salt in order to bring out the sweetness. So you definitely need full teaspoon, if not a little bit more. I'm also using salted butter, so adds to the saltiness. And that's it. Obviously, salt's not really going to go through, but you want to make sure there's no clumps. Our yeast is nice and bubbly. We're going to turn on our mixer, stream in butter, then the heavy cream, then the dry ingredients. Warm butter will help dissolve that sweetener a little bit, and the warm milk also. With all that extra xanthan gum in there, this is gonna get real thick real fast. And the gelatin. Gelatin, I think, gives it that chew along with the xanthan gum, but you don't have to use as much xanthan gum to get the chew, because xanthan gum can get a little bit slimy in texture. Make sure your ingredients are really well whisked. You don't want a bunch of pockets of xanthan gum and stuff in there. All at once. Just mix until a dough forms. Stop and scrape down a little bit, all the dry in. Okay, we got a dough formed. I let it sit for a minute and I grabbed 2 8x8 pans. I did this into 18 rolls. You can't really do it with 18 in a 9x13. You'd have to make them a little bit bigger, and then that would change the cook times on them. So after I figured out this recipe, I did not do a ton more testing because I had already done like over 10 batches, if not more. I lost count. But I had so many rolls and it took me so long to figure out the final recipe that I haven't done a ton of extra testing. So I know how to do it this way, and that's it right now. I will eventually probably revisit this recipe for many other things, but if you guys want to try some stuff, let me know in the comments below what you do and if it works out and all that stuff. So you should have a very thick dough. I was thinking about trying to use like a dough hook on it, but I hate dirtying more dishes, so I didn't even bother trying. But it does form like a regular dough almost. It's a little bit stickier, but not too much. So I was even working on these at Thanksgiving. They were requested by my mother-in-law for Thanksgiving. They will probably be at our Christmas dinner as well. So it should be pretty much like a dough. Of course, stickier as always, but we're gonna combat that with cooking spray. So I take a piece of plastic wrap, give it a spray, zero it out, the whole lot on there. This brought me back to my first internship in high school culinary class, where I worked at a place that made their own buns and rolls. This works almost exactly like a regular dough. So I'll show you what I do to make these rolls. So we're at 913. Spray the counter. If you have a scale, this is the easiest way to do it, but if you don't, you're gonna have to just roll it into like a log and cut it into 18 pieces. Cut off chunks and place them on the oil. Forgot to oil my hands. Much easier if you just oil everything. So go down by 50. You might have to re-oil your hands every once in a while. The dough likes to stick to itself is the problem. So if you get any on your hand and then you try to do another one, it will probably stick to the dough. You're gonna roll it into a ball. Basically just trying to get it kind of smooth. Not many creases and breaks where there isn't cohesive dough. The roll is gonna split somewhere probably, and you wanna minimize the split. I really haven't figured out a way to completely get rid of the split that happens, but. Okay, now, this is what we used to do in the first job I ever had. Take it and you roll it like this to try and get a nice smooth top and the little thing on the bottom. So you're like stretching the dough over. I don't know how necessary it is just because I didn't not do that at all, but I worry that it's not gonna have a nice dome on top if you don't do it. So like you just take it and like you're rolling it back and forth and you're kind of tightening the top dough over it. I wish this worked to not split it at all. That was my hope, but alas, our keto dough still doesn't have enough elasticity and gluten replacement to keep it from splitting. Maybe one of these days I'll get bold enough to just dump a bunch of stuff in there. That's the problem. Like if you go too much and it doesn't work, then you waste all those ingredients. But I took a chance with adding a lot of gelatin and it worked. So maybe we just need a little bit more. I did do this with just throwing them straight in and they're good. It's just they got a little bit bigger and fluffier when you proof them. They're good either way though. And I found if you don't cover them while they proof, they brown a lot faster. So I actually cover them while they're proofing. Here's the last one. That is one full pan, and then we're gonna do the other pan and get them in the proofer. Okay, I got my 2 pans here. So for proofing, I use my dehydrator. I call it a proofer, but it proofs at 105, which is higher than a normal proof of like 80-ish, which is most doughs. You can just literally have your oven preheating and just have them in a warm room or in a microwave or in your oven with the light on. That will work for normal bread and rolls and stuff like that. But for our keto stuff, it needs more help to get that rise on it. So I found 105 to even 110 is a pretty good way to proof. So when I was upstairs, I don't have a dehydrator up there. I just set them on the stove and I took a temperature kind of where the hot air was blowing out of the back of the oven. So on the burners in front of the hot air, I took temperatures along like the back to kind of see where 100 and some air is. Made sure it was far enough back that it wasn't getting too hot because it was melting the plastic wrap. It's kind of trial and error. If you see it kind of rising after half an hour, you're good to go. I spin it halfway through because the air that's further away is not very hot. So I spin them at 30 minutes. I even do that in the dehydrator, but that's just kind of habit, and I'm sure it's still warmer in the back of the dehydrator than in the front of the dehydrator. So the reason I'm using the aluminum is because I don't have 2 8x8 pans. I have 1 silicone 8x8 and it worked great in that. Upstairs, I only have a glass one. It worked fine to like proof and bacon, but it's stuck. So make sure you parchment if you're using a glass 8x8 pan. If you're using a non-stick, you might still just want to do a little bit of parchment on the bottom just to be safe. I'm gonna throw these in the proofer, 30 minutes, turn them, 30 more minutes. It's just set on my lowest setting, which is 105. So we'll be back when we're ready to bake these. At about the 30-minute mark, turn your oven to 375. Finally did some bakery shopping. So we'll be back here in 30 minutes. I'll probably show you what it looks like, and then we'll be back to throw them in the oven. Okay, it's been 30 minutes. I'll give you a little peek so they don't look too much differently, but I'm gonna turn them, set it for another 30 minutes. I also rotated them on my rack. So the one that was on the top went to the bottom, bottom to the top. Okay, my second 30 minutes is almost up. I got a sheet pan to put these on. I haven't used this oven to bake this particular recipe yet. So all I know is you need to bake them longer than you think. If you put them straight in, they're gonna get brown on top, but you're gonna have to keep baking them for longer, even if they look like they're done, because they need to dry out in the middle a little bit more and get solid in there. They're gonna taste good either way, but they're gonna be a little bit more doughy in the middle. So getting the bake times on this was one of the hardest parts of the recipe, but I'm gonna do 15, turn 15, but I'm gonna keep an eye on them after second 15. The less you bake it, the more it falls or deflates. So I'm gonna grab the rolls and get them in the oven. So they did get a little bit bigger. They are now touching. They weren't touching before. They do proof a little bit. In they go. Okay, it's been 15 minutes. What they look like so far. I'm gonna give them a turn. And it looks like we can go another 15 minutes at least. They're not very brown on top. You still want them soft, but very brown, and it doesn't look wet in the middle where they're splitting. Okay, there's only 30 seconds left. I'm gonna pull one out. They don't look super dark on top, so they can go a little bit longer, I think. They're super soft and fluffy. I think they need a couple more minutes though, so I'm gonna throw this back in for like 2 more minutes. Okay, it's been another 2 minutes. I think these are good. They will probably still sink a little bit, but I don't think they're gonna be doughy in the middle. That was 32 minutes. They are really good warm out of the oven, but I'll give them a little bit of time to cool down before I try one. Okay, it's been a couple of minutes. As you can see, the smoother you get the top, like the more they look like a, sweet dinner roll. But if you greased it enough, they should come right out and they pull apart. I'm gonna try this guy here. Now it does like naturally split, but I'm gonna rip it apart. It's like really bready and super soft. They're like moist in the middle, bready texture. They're really good. I'm gonna cut into one of these like a regular roll. They're super soft and squishy. I have a little bit of butter here. Still warm. They're super soft, but they have like the chew and almost like gumminess of like a regular roll. Tastes like the texture of like a regular dinner roll. That real gluteny chew you get from a dinner roll. They don't taste super sweet to me. There's just like a hint of sweetness, but my palate has been not able to taste sweetness as much. And my husband loves these, and he said that the sweetness is good on them. My mom said they taste like a sweet roll. Now, if you minus the sweetener, you're gonna have to up the flour still. You might not as much in this just because you have so much xanthan gum and gelatin. But when I went from making the cinnamon rolls to the pizza rolls and I minused the sweetener by half, I ended up having to add double the amount of bamboo fiber. So I'm not sure if you're gonna have to do that much more, but I would put some extra in it. You definitely want a nice firm dough that you can work with. I'll probably do another rendition of this at some point with no sweetener in it at all, but it like tears like a regular roll. These lasted, I just threw out some that I made and they were like 3 or 4 weeks old. So they'll stay good in your fridge for a couple of weeks, and just throw them in the toaster oven or in the oven real quick to warm up a little bit, and they're just as good. It's delicious. So all in all, once I figured it out, it's a pretty easy recipe, and only 1 net carb for one of these rolls. Not too bad. They're so good. I ate them with a Greek salad last night too. Delicious. They actually remind me of the texture of pita bread, like once you cut them and toast them. So I might do some experimenting with making some pita also. I hope you guys enjoy this recipe. If you do give it a try for yourself, let me know in the comments below how everyone enjoyed it. You can always tag me on Instagram at KetoUpgrade or you can post a picture on my Keto Upgrade Facebook page and show me your awesome keto desserts and pastries and breads. This gives me confidence I'll be able to figure out a chewy pizza crust soon. So I'll be working on that in the new year. Don't forget to check out my Amazon links and the blog link to the full recipe in the description box below. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, I'll be back with more keto, low carb, just healthy meals and recipes. Bye guys. Happy keto, low carb baking, and have a happy holiday with some delicious bread at your dinner table.